NESN Patriots beat reporter Zack Cox joins me as the NFL Combine is underway. Plenty of interviews going down before workouts begin on Thursday. Zack, I want to start with obviously the Patriots, and what do you think their focus will be this week as they look at the next round of prospects in the draft?
Well, the interesting thing about the combine is that it comes before free agency. So at this point in the offseason, it's really hard to nail down exactly what a team's needs are going to be because those could change a lot in the next couple of weeks. But when I look at it right now, the biggest needs for the Patriots, I say cornerback, I say linebacker, I say wide receiver, I say offensive tackle. Those would be kind of the big four for me for the Patriots. And again, that can shift if they re-sign JC Jackson or if they kind of pick up Calvin Ridley in a trade or something like that. So we got a long ways to go before the actual draft itself. But those are the ones that I have my eye closest on right now.
Makes sense. Of course, Trent Brown will be a free agent this offseason, so you listed the needs there. And you mentioned a guy I want to ask you about, JC Jackson. How much do you think this week, if at all, impacts the ongoing negotiations between JC Jackson and the Patriots, as he said he'll play on a franchise tag, but of course, he wants to get a long-term contract and get paid as well?
I think you're going to see a lot of progress in the JC Jackson situation this week. I don't know if that's going to be progress toward a new deal or a franchise tag or whatever direction it goes. But in addition to the actual combine itself, the drills, the prospect aspect of it, this is really the week where the NFL decision makers kind of meet behind the scenes and hash out a lot of these things. You see, there's a lot of agents meeting with teams in Indianapolis, a lot of general managers meeting with coaches. There's a lot of shot collar talk going on. And this is usually the time of the offseason where you kind of start to see a player's market materialize. So I think by the end of this week, we'll have a much better idea of what exactly is going to happen with JC Jackson, the type of money he potentially could get elsewhere, everything like that. I think that's all going to really crystallize this week.
Of course, JC Jackson saying that Mr. INT, for him, it's time to get paid. Now, for the Pats in particular, what are some players you think they will focus on and they really will want to watch this week and scout and see how they fall on their board?
They do seem to be focusing a lot on wide receivers so far. All of the other position groups haven't spoken yet, so we don't know, haven't heard from any of those guys, but we did hear from a lot of wide receivers this morning, and basically every one of them said that they had met with the Patriots during their time in Indianapolis. And now that does not always signal that a team is actually interested in that player, and the Patriots are going to meet with hundreds of players before the NFL draft. So I warn people against saying, oh, the Patriots met with Treylon Burks, they're definitely going to target Treylon Burks. Doesn't really work that way, but it is interesting just to see how much focus they are putting on that position so far. You see a lot of the big names there have met with the Patriots. I mentioned Burks, Jameson Williams as well from Alabama, John Mechie, Chris Olave. A lot of these big name early round type guys have met with the Patriots. So definitely going to be guys to watch there as this week goes along.
I feel seen. I love Treylon Burks. Now, out of those receivers, I want to get your opinion on this one. We saw Wan'Dale Robinson from Kentucky, who used to be at Purdue, also spoke to them. Is there any receiver that jumps out at you, whether it could be, a Sky Moore from Western Michigan, where they can get much later in the draft, but is there any receiver that jumps out at you that says, really, this guy looks like a future New England Patriot?
There's a lot of them this year. Honestly, this is a really good year for receiver talent. You don't really have the top end guys like you did last year with a Jamar Chase or a Jalen Waddle, guys that are going to go in the top 5 or 6. But there's a lot of depth there. And if the Patriots use that 21st pick on a receiver, which I'm skeptical about, they've only used a first round pick on a wideout once. They haven't drafted one on day 2 since 2013. So that really isn't their MO. But if they do decide to this year, there's a couple options in there. And number one among them is Chris Olave for me from Ohio State. He's a superb route runner. He has the speed that the Patriots kind of lacked in that position this year. Great hands. Also was a really good special teams player at Ohio State. He just kind of has the total package of what the Patriots look for in a receiver. I've seen him be compared to Terry McLaurin, who was another Ohio State receiver that a lot of people said the Patriots should have targeted in the draft when they ended up getting N'Keal Harry. So he's one guy that it's a pretty long list, but Olave is right near the top of that for me.
You got to keep bringing up that N'Keal Harry draft pick. And, of course, guys like Slade Bolden, Jameson Williams, John Mechie, all former teammates of Mac Jones when he was at Alabama. All right, Zach, I want to end it with this. Any prospects overall, whether the Patriots, you think they would need them or not, but one that intrigues you that you really look forward to watching, seeing how they test this week?
Yeah, we've focused a lot on receivers so far here. There's definitely some cornerbacks that I'm looking forward to watching. Those are always fun drills, just with the speed and athleticism that those guys have. Also linebacker, just with the Patriots need there. Interested to see how a guy like Nakobe Dean looks and tests and measures this week, because he's a super explosive player at Georgia, but on the smaller side, he could measure in at less than 6 feet tall, which could potentially be a deal breaker, especially for a team like the Patriots, who typically like bigger, more physical, kind of beefier linebackers. And then a final one, Jordan Davis, the nose tackle, the defensive tackle from Georgia. He's just a monster of a man, and you watch him on tape with the Bulldogs last year, and he was the type of player who could run sideline to sideline at 300 plus pounds. Really interested to see how he looks in the 40 and in some of those positional drills this week.
6'6", 360 for Jordan Davis, an absolute beast at that spot. And the Kobe Dean, like you said, people call him a missile. So agree with you on that one. Look forward to watching them as well. So the Combine will be this week. The NFL Draft, April 28th. And until then, and always year-round for Patriots coverage, keep it locked in with Zack Cox. Zack, thanks for joining me, man.
Thank you.